Stacy the Blackfeather Intuitive, and welcome to Divinely Decked Tarot and Oracle Reviews done Stacy style. And today is part 2 of my angel and archangel tarot and oracle deck journey. And we are going to be exploring, sort of how I expanded and was I don't want to say advancing, but just expanding my knowledge of angels and what angels meant to me. And this, I feel, was kind of like brought me up to a level 2 or a level 3. So I can't wait to share these decks with you. So without further ado, let's get to it. Oh, and Mr. Neo is coming by here. So welcome to the Angels of Atlantis Oracle cards. This is by Stuart Pearce, and Richard Crooks does the illustrations. And we also have the Angel Heart Sigils, Mystical Symbols. This is also Stuart Pearce. And what I was really drawn to here, we'll take a look at this one because this one came first. It's by Findhorn Press. And small, just a kind of a handful of decks. Definitely, I want to say more old school. I think these came out in 2010, 2012. Well, we'll find out here. I was really introduced to this author, Stuart Pearce, because he wrote the book, The Alchemy of Voice. And I was an opera singer and a voice teacher, published in 2011. So this was published a year before I really fully kind of stepped into my own. I'd been on a spiritual awakening journey for a really long time, but it was like phase 1 was done and this was phase 2. And this was the very beginning of phase 2. And I was recognizing that if I'm not Stacy the opera singer, because that's ultimately what it is, then who am I? Well, then it turned into, okay, I'm Stacy the voice teacher. I felt comfortable going into voice teaching and voice lessons. And so everything that I was doing was about learning about the voice and being a better teacher to be able to communicate that to students, how to make their voice work for them. Obviously, my university education was all about that. So I was highly qualified already with the technical components of things, but I was also on that spiritual journey for myself and really trying to come up with different analogies because each person learns differently. And when I came across this book, The Alchemy of Voice, it really rang true to me because he's a psychic. And this was before I even kind of fully knew I was psychic when I'd found this book. I was drawn to it. He talked about like the sounds that we make and how that can be very, like it's spiritual in nature, right? And, the frequency and the tones. And so I was like all in, and I read the book and I was very excited about the book. Well, then when I started to open up to my psychic gifts in this regard, and I saw that this author had card decks, well, I was all in. And so I started working with these, the Sandalphon, Evolution, Uriel, Friendship. And this was the first deck that I had that I would say looks really modern. And obviously, it's old school. It's very thin, thin cardstock. It's kind of got a bit of a cheesier, sort of look to it. The author is, I'm going to say to you, quite frankly, if you ever listen to him, he's funny. He's over the top. He's cheesy. And I love him for it. It also makes me kind of eye roll from time to time. So I'm really glad that I did not know that he kind of existed on YouTube or anything at the time that I got these things, because I probably wouldn't have bought the decks. But, we all explore our gifts and share our gifts in different ways. And he's definitely been a big part of my journey. And these cards really opened me up to the galactic side of me and to the awareness that the reason why I went down the singing role, the singing path, the opera singing path, was to help me to connect with my voice. I was born into and raised in a very dysfunctional home environment. I was not really allowed to use my voice. It was a scary environment. I wasn't allowed to have my own opinions, and you know, a lot of us could probably, say that we've had a similar experience or the same experience, but that was just my experience. And so I believe now, and when I started working with this deck, I started to really understand that was why I went through the journey of singing opera and going big or going home in the way that I always do. And then all of a sudden something just shut me down. And it no longer was my dream. There was no longer any desire or motivation or passion in the way that there used to be. And I realize now it's because I needed to be able to use my voice on every level and not be afraid to use my voice on every level, because I was stepping into my true purpose, which was to be a psychic and to use my voice to pass on this information to others and to understand what frequency is on the physical and in the physical, so that I can also work on my own healing and provide healing for others, because everything is energy and everything is frequency, and our physical bodies respond to different frequencies in positive and in negative ways. And this deck really opened me up to that. I also really enjoy with this deck that he works with the same archangels, and he pulls out 3 or 4 different aspects that they deal with. Uriel is trust, Raphael, communication, Uriel, freedom. Here we go. So, it's the different aspects that the archangels work with us on, the characteristics that they're in charge of. And as I was saying in my part 1, and feel free to watch that if you're interested, in my part 1, that was part of the kind of like the evolution, I want to say, for me. I was doing the Archangel Conversations and Beyond series, the workshop series, teaching others about the different archangels and how they can work for you and what their characteristics were. So this was validation of that, but this was also, I want to say, like the next level, and really helped me to kind of tap into that. Zadkiel, gratitude, understanding who to go to for that. And, some of it is, I want to say, a little bit cheesy, a little bit on the nose. I feel, again, like that's kind of the personality of Stuart Pearce. And I say, rock on with your bad self, Stuart, like you do you. I think it's great. And these cards really kind of helped me to bring myself to the next level. And I do want to share with you here. We'll just do a Jophiel. I do want to share with you the way that he writes it, because it's short and sweet. And I thought this was great. So Jophiel is the Holy Liberator. Now, you wouldn't know that to look at the cards. You need the book to tell you that. So Jophiel overall is the Holy Liberator. Forgiveness. When you draw this card, Jophiel asks you to release the negative feelings of the past, to let go of the substance of the pain that stops you from living a life of unlimited joy and love. Forgiveness doesn't mean you accept inappropriate behavior towards yourself. It means that you no longer are prepared to carry the pain of reaction within you. When we hold unforgiveness in our hearts, we may be stabbed by bitterness. Let Jophiel take this burden from you. By chanting Ha 3 times, your heart chakra will feel changed and enlivened. Even though I was an opera singer, I still was having trouble using my voice. And I absolutely was having trouble using my voice as a psychic, because I was so afraid to be wrong. I was so afraid to say the wrong thing and cause harm to another person. I was also afraid that it was the imposter syndrome situation, that who am I to say these things, and who am I to do these things? And learning to chant Ha, 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 and paying attention to how that feels in my body, not from producing a sound perspective, but now from the spiritual perspective. What energetically is it, setting off in my body? Where do I feel it in my body? Where is it resonating? If I change the pitch, ha, 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 where am I feeling it in the body? It really was just a great exercise for me in opening up the floodgates of, I want to say, my channeler, but also using my voice and just surrendering to the fact that this is who I am. and this is what I have to offer right now. And there are people that need it. And so it's bigger than me. It's not about me. Get over myself, speak my truth, use my voice, and, let the chips fall where they may. That's kind of the energy of what this was. So lots of love for this deck. And it's funny, I haven't pulled this deck out in a really long time. Every once in a blue moon, I'll get the call to kind of take it out, especially if I'm in a rush and I need a quick reading. This is great because I know the message is really short and sweet, but there's always kind of a nice little homecoming, especially with that galactic feel. And then he also had this angel heart sigils that came out. And I think I got this, and like maybe 4 or 5 months later, I got this one. I wasn't as drawn to this one at first. And as if you've been watching any of my videos for a while, you know that sometimes I will get a deck. It's just like buying a book. I'm sure a lot of us have gone through that experience where, we buy a book thinking, oh my God, this is really interesting. Or thinking, I don't know why I'm buying this book. And it sits on the shelf for 2 years and, you never feel quite ready for it. And then all of a sudden, 2 years later, you pick up the book and it's exactly what you need in that moment, right? That's kind of how this deck was for me. Is I got it and I was kind of like, meh, okay, I'm not really sure. I know I really liked the first ones, but I'm not really sure about, this deck or whatever. And so I worked with it for a little bit. I'll say to you, it's not like my favorite deck, but what I really loved about it is that it helped me with the symbolism. It helped me, it's sigils. And that's the whole point of a sigil, is to look within the symbol, and it triggers or activates a subconscious thread within you. It opens up the subconscious pathway of knowledge, and I would say it's kind of like, I believe that our Akashic records are actually located within our DNA in the body. And so, this deck was definitely opening up to that. So you have a lot of, sort of light codes. He uses a lot of what he calls light language, angel language, angel speak. He has, a simple sigil in the center, and then he sort of, builds energy around it here. So Gabrielle, prophecy, Michael, sovereignty. And again, we're seeing, the galactic, it's very similar to his other deck. We're seeing the galactic energy here. Here's a beautiful sigil. Now this one, it's an error. It's a mistake. And I always forget, I have to look in the book to figure out who it is, but they forgot to put the angel on the angel title on the card. So that was another thing as a Virgo that stresses me out, because now I'm like, it's not a quick fix. It's not a quick thing, but at the same time, with all these years behind me now, I also feel like that's kind of cool. It's a feature of the deck. It is a feature of the deck that stops me from using the deck a lot, but it is a feature of the deck. Jophiel, wonder. And, some of this is religious imagery as well, which is not my favorite. I'm not a fan of it. But he also has, real world examples of it as well. And I always appreciate that, especially for me when I'm trying to learn something. I tend to get a little cerebral about it until I realize, wait a second, Stacey, that cerebral is going to kill the intuitive flow. So let it go, and just really look into the image of what you're seeing here. What does the image tell you? Like for example here, Sandalphon, assurance. I'm seeing Red Rock country here, and assurance is that mountain is still going to be there tomorrow. That mountain is going to be there 10,000 years from now. That mountain's going to be there well past my body's expiration date, in this particular journey. So yeah, assurance that all is well and everything's going to be okay. The sun's going to rise in the morning and set in the evening and rise in the morning again. Charisma, here we have a picture of, Mother Teresa. I've never thought of Mother Teresa as having charisma, but okay, it's an interesting concept. Exaltation, Michael. So this deck, again, I used it less than the other deck, but I did use it to open myself up to sigils. And it's really interesting because I want to say 3 or 4 years after having this deck and working with this deck, I was taking a level 5 of my Melchizedek method course. And there was it's so funny. there was an exercise we were doing where we were supposed to go into this deep meditation, and my body was like, fuck that. Like, I'm done. I think what it was is, the video was horrible. And so there was a lot of skipping and jumping. And I was just, quite frankly, downright irritated by the shitty quality. You know, you pay a lot of money to do these levels, and then you're supposed to go into meditation, but there's like skips and jumps and cracks, and like, how can you meditate in that way? And my guides kept saying, like, okay, just release yourself, do the meditation, but just write, like doodle or write, you know, grab your journal, and you can do it that way rather than trying to close your eyes and you know, go into the flow of it. And so that's what I did. And that was the first time that I channeled a bunch of light language. And I was like, oh, okay, so it is working. I just needed to get out of the, you know, my way of thinking, the way it was supposed to go. And, you know, it was crackly and it is disturbing and it is all the things and the stuff. But for me, it happened that way so that I could do this. And I feel like this was the precursor to that. This was the priming of the pump. You know, we as psychics and as humans, like, our minds, we need to fill them up. It's like the phone with no apps. You put apps on the phone so that you've got knowledge and information to be able to tap into when it's needed. Same with your laptop. You know, you load things up on your laptop. You're not necessarily using them every single day, but they're there for you when it's needed, when you need to tap into that. And our angels and guides, when we are channeling and doing the psychic stuff, they utilize the information that's in our minds, in our heads. And so that's why I don't get a lot of information for math scholars and physicists, because I suck at math. But let me tell you, I get formulaic stuff all the time because formulas are symbols. So I feel like this deck was a kind of a primer for me. It was the precursor and laying foundation, putting apps on my phone, putting programs on my hard drive that were going to be there for when I was ready. And I was ready when I was doing that level 5, you know, of the Melchizedek method. So that was really cool. And of course, Melchizedek method is all of these things as well, you know, very galactic and, you know, lots of things and stuff coming up. So yeah, so I have love for this deck in a very different way than one might expect. And that's how I would sort of describe that. All right. So that is part 2 of my angel journey, angel deck journey. I hope you enjoyed learning about Stuart Pearce's oracle decks here, a little bit about him, and just, you know, my story and how this played into, you know, what was going on in my world. And until I see you for another episode of Divinely Decked, I'm sending you lots of love, lots of support. We will see you on the flip side, and transform well. That's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. It was great to connect with you guys. Please like, subscribe, and comment for more content like this. And feel free to follow me on Blue Sky for even more content every single day. Can't wait to see you guys next week for another installment of Black Feather Couture, Divining the VIP Life.